Want to put these tips together for you because I find that air quality is often overlooked. It really does matter in health, but people tend not to think about it until it's causing a massive problem. Obviously, if you're hacking up a lung when you walk through your front door, then you're going to look at your air quality. Obviously, if you're living in black mold and you're wheezing all the time and your immune system's flaring and you're having all these allergic reactions, you're going to look at air quality. But unless it's more obvious, people don't tend to consider it much. And I didn't either. I overlooked it for a long time and eventually found that in the past, I've been living in some pretty poor air quality. And then even when I learned about this stuff, I spent about 2.5 years before I really got around to cleaning up the home I was in and dealing with low quality air issues. And part of the reason is that at that time I did not feel well. I was very fatigued, didn't have the energy for it. But even if you feel well, it's like you got a million responsibilities for at life. You've got chores, you got work, you got family, other obligations. The last thing people want to do is worry about something additional. But air quality really makes a big difference in people's health. It's no different than the water in a fishbowl that the fish is swimming around in. Obviously, as it gets more murky and dirty, that's not good for the health of the fish. And it's the same thing with our air. As you're breathing the air in, it's either nourishing your body, replenishing it, or it's giving your body more toxins and foreign particulates to deal with. So it can be a drain on health or support your health. And in the modern world, we have enough drains on our health. We have enough things pulling health down in form of stress and toxins and other things. So anything we can use that gives our health a boost and is supportive is a win and worth doing. And the air quality is, like I said earlier, it's the water you're swimming in. And we want it to be as clean and pristine as possible. So the first tip is to get fresh air in. And I know that sounds like ridiculously obvious, but again, I'll look back at myself, even though I knew this was important. How many days did I come home from work and I just cooked dinner and then sat down and then started watching a show or doing more work? And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it at the next break. I'll do it in a little bit. And then comes time for bed. I'm like, all right, just going to bed. And I didn't get around to it. Probably everybody could open their windows a little bit more than we normally do. Naturopathic doctors and a lot of the natural doctors of previous generations, one of their biggest recommendations for sick people on bed rest, is get outside, get some fresh air and sunshine, because they knew the power of fresh air. And I think it's something we overlook, take for granted, and we really don't understand the poor air quality that's in the home, like I said, unless it's extreme. That's what I learned. Like my air quality wasn't great. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. So it was just a slow drag on my health until I got sick of feeling sick and tired, and kept learning more about this and eventually working with clients and seeing how it affected them enough times for it to finally sink into my brain. Like, okay, wow, the air really matters. And it especially matters when you're sleeping at night, because that's the time your body goes into rest and repair mode. It shuts down. There's a lot of processes it doesn't have to do, it doesn't have to worry about. So it can really devote energy and resources to repair and healing. But if your lungs are breathing in low quality air, then instead of doing the healing and repairing, the body's got to deal with that. It's got to detox that. It's got to manage it. If the air quality is poor enough, your immune system and body starts to go on more high alert, and it's just not a good situation. And then you go weeks and months with poor quality sleep, poor replenishment, and it will add up to health issues over time. So simply just opening the windows, getting fresh air in as much as possible, obvious, but often overlooked. The second tip is to manage moisture. This is crucial. If you've never had a mold issue in your home, lived through it, had a family member deal with it, then you may not fully appreciate this. Again, doing the work that I do and seeing clients, like every week, clients come in and have unexplained symptoms, fatigue, brain fog, massive anxiety, increasing allergic reactions, but they're not true allergies. You name it, on and on. And we get down to it, and a big piece of it is mold. So there's so many times people are living in with mold in their home, and these can be clean, nice, like really new homes, fancy homes. It doesn't matter. It happens all over the place, and a lot of times it doesn't show it. So the first sign uh, that it's there is people's symptoms and decreasing health. And it's not until you rip out a wall and see what's behind it, or cut down into the foundation and look at these cracks, or even people get it in their roof. I mean, you have to open up the roof to see where all the mold's growing. So you really want to manage moisture in the home. Even if you don't have mold growing, moisture above a certain level, it might be good for a greenhouse and plants, but it's not good for humans. We're not meant to breathe that super heavy, humid moisture air all the time. It's harder on the body. Like, you can do it, but it's harder on the body. That's why people like these temperate, arid climates. They're popular climates to retire to. And when you think about like a Mediterranean climate, they're associated with longevity, vacation, relax, regenerate, renew, because they're not as hard on the body as the deep tropics, for example. So, one way you can manage moisture, if you don't have central heating and cooling, or you can't manage the moisture content from your thermostat, another easy option is a dehumidifier. In my home, it's a little older home and the airflow isn't great. And so there's one kind of back corner of the house that's right by one of the bathrooms where I take my showers, that for whatever reason always just feels more humid there. And it is, because I've measured it at this point. I measure things a little more closely, like the moisture. So I just got a dehumidifier, put it back there. I'll run it multiple times a week, and it does a great job. It manages it and keeps the humidity like the rest of the house. And I am positive over time, I definitely would have had a mold issue back in that area if I didn't do this, because it's mold will grow where there's moisture over time. I had a client with, well, their child had severe eczema, like scratching all the time. Their skin's just crawling. They scratched so hard it would burst open and bleed, and all these cuts. And it was very dry and cracked skin. So they thought to get a humidifier in the room because they want to moisturize the skin, which I totally understand. The kid's having a really rough time. But one of the core causes of that eczema was a mold issue in the home, that over time everyone started getting more and more sick with symptoms. And that mold can only grow in moisture. So the last thing you want to do in a house, or a room in this case, with a mold issue that you're trying to get remediated, is to add more moisture. It's like adding more fuel to the fire. So what they want to do is actually keep the humidity level below a certain percent. Actually, under 55% is where you want to keep it, which might seem pretty low. That surprised me at first. I'm like, that can't be right. That seems too low. But if you listen to mold experts, remediation experts, people who test for mold, that's the general figure. Some of them will even say lower than that, because they work in this every day. They see the effects it has on people's health, but at least 55%. So they'd want to keep that humidity lower, and then support the skin and the dry skin and symptoms some other way to moisturize the skin, but not through pumping a bunch of humid air into the room. And the third tip is to use filters. So this would often be a HEPA filter. That's kind of the gold standard. And that's just going to filter through the air and clean it out. I have a colleague who is a scientist at a laboratory, where one of the labs I use to run tests for clients, and they've seen patients' test results markedly improve. And the biggest intervention was putting a HEPA air filter in the bedroom. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier, allowing the body to feel safe, to have clean, pure air, and to be able to start to repair and heal, rather than being a stress state and dealing with more toxins throughout the entire night. So when I heard that and heard what some of the results were, it really stuck with me. Like, yeah, this matters. But it's not just the bedroom. You can put it anywhere in the home. Again, you can combine that, or do one or the other with the opening opening the window to get fresh air in. But either way, want to circulate the air, get it moving, and get clean, pure air in there one way or another. Another way you can use HEPA filters is in a vacuum. A lot of vacuums are now HEPA filter rated, especially if you've got carpet in the home. Carpet over time, those fibers just break down just from aging and natural wear and tear. And they release an incredible amount of particles into the air. Again, I learned this firsthand experience. Home that I absolutely loved had older carpet. It still looked really nice, so there's no point to replace it, at least from a logical standpoint. But working in the health world and seeing all these different things that affect people's health and add up over time, you know, if I had to go back in time, I probably would have replaced it. But at the time, it's like, well, it's fine condition. But the older it gets, the more it's letting off into the air. And one way you can combat that, if you have carpet and you're not looking to replace it, vacuuming with a HEPA filter vacuum can pull a lot of those looser particles or particles near the top of the carpet before they get released in the air, before they get stirred up by people walking around back and forth. Suck it up with the vacuum and keep yourself from having to breathe that in. So those are 3 tips for you. Like I said, some of them might seem obvious. Hopefully they're just a reminder and you find yourself doing one of these things a little bit more. And if you do that over the weeks and months, that's going to add up to a lot. I hope it helps your health. If you find that it did in any way, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And I'll see you in a couple days for our next episode. Stay wise.